This is your notes for representing rates. Use the information below to represent a rate on a graph, in a table, and as an equation. Number 1. Luca and Celine travel on the same trail. Luca rides his bike while Celine walks. Use the data in the graph at the right to complete the multiple representations of their rate of speed. So let's look at Luca's line first on the graph. We can see that we're talking about hours and how many miles he has biked. So if I look at 1 hour, he rides 8 miles every hour. 1 hour equals 8 miles. 2 hours, 16 miles. 3 hours, 24. 4 hours, 32 miles. Let's look at Celine's line. If I look at 1 hour, it looks like she's in the middle of 2 and 4. But I'm going to double check using a point on the graph that hits an intersection. If you look at 2 hours, you see it's 6 miles that she walked, which ends up being, splitting that in half, we have 1 hour she walks 3 miles. So we were right, but it's always good to check using a real point on a graph. 2 hours, she walks 6 miles. 3 hours, walks 9. 4 hours, 12 miles. Okay, so then part A says the unit rate is the value of y at the point 1 comma y. Using the graph above, what is the unit rate at which Luca travels? Okay, so it's telling us if in 1 hour of time, how many miles did he ride? That's our unit rate. We know his unit rate is 8 miles per hour. B, what is the unit rate at which Celine travels? Look at your table. We can see 3 miles per hour. Part C, how much further does Luca travel in 2 hours than Celine? And after 15 hours, how many miles does Luca and Celine each travel? So there's 2 questions here. The first one said, how much further does Luca travel in 2 hours than Celine? In 2 hours, Luca travels 16 miles. In 2 hours, Celine travels 6 miles. So we have to find the difference. He ends up traveling 10 more miles than she did. Then the second part, it says after 15 hours, how many miles will Luca and Celine each travel? We know Luca travels 8 miles an hour. So we have to figure out 15 times 8 to know how many miles he traveled. And Celine, she travels 3 miles per hour times the 15 hours. Okay? To figure out how many miles she walks. So if we solve 15 times 8, we find out that Luca travels 120 miles. If you solve 3 times 15, we find out that Celine travels 45 miles. D, write an equation to represent Luca and Celine's rates of speed. All right, so we have to use the number per hour for our equation. Luca travels 8 miles per hour. So we're always going to do 8 times however many hours there are to figure out how many miles. Okay, so it's going to be 8 times the number of hours equals our miles. Same thing for Celine. She walks at 3 miles per hour. So it's always going to be 3 times the number of hours there are to figure out how many miles she did in total. Question number 2. Veronica's looking for a bakery to buy cupcakes for a baby shower. She wrote equations to represent the price per cupcake. Order the bakeries from greatest to least cost per cupcake. We can see that at June's Cafe, it's going to cost us $3.75 per cupcake. Sugarloaf, $2.90 per cupcake. Lavender Farm, $3.50 per cupcake. So, greatest to least cost, so the most expensive is going to be June's Cafe. Now what's the most expensive? Lavender Farm. And the cheapest cupcakes we can buy are at Sugarloaf. A group of friends recorded their cumulative number of steps on 5 days during the month of June. Determine the unit rate for the tables below. So cumulative means total. Okay, determine unit rate. I want to know in 1 day. So for Holly, it tells us, perfect. Our unit rate is 4,000 steps in 1 day. Then I get to Elias, and it says 5,000 steps in 2 days. But I want to know in 1 day. So we're going to do 5,000 divided by 2 and figure out that's 2,500 steps in 1 day. Then we get to Ricky, and it says 12,800 steps in 4 days. So I'm going to divide the steps by 4 to figure out how much he walks in 1 day. 12,800 divided by 4 is 3,200 steps per day. And Yuval walks 9,450 steps in 3 days. So we're going to divide that number by 3 to figure out how much they walk in 1 day. And it's going to be 3,150 steps. Number 7, order the friends' daily step rate from least to greatest. So who walks the least amount of steps to who walks the most amount of steps. Elias walks the least amount of steps. Then Yuval and Ricky, and then Holly walks the most. Number 8, Terry observed a fast food drive-through window for 4 mornings. She wrote equations to represent the average minutes per customer order for each morning. Determine the unit rate for each of the 4 mornings and fill in the table below. This number in our equation is never going to change, okay? So that is our unit rate, 5.5. On Tuesday, our unit rate is 5. On Thursday, our unit rate is 4 2/5. On Friday, our unit rate is 6. Number 9, the unit rate of the value of y at the point, the unit rate is the value of y at the point 1, y. Determine the unit rates of the equations below using the graphs. That unit rate is just that number next to our variable. So the unit rate is 2. The unit rate is 6. The unit rate is 3.5. Okay. So now, how to graph these. Okay, think about like an XY table. If I replace x with the number 1, 2 times 1 equals 2. If I replace x with 2, 2 times 2 is 4. If I replace x with 3, it's 6. If I replace x with 4, it's 8. So, then you graph your points. X tells us how far right, and y tells us how far up. So I go 1 unit right and 2 units up. There's my first point. 2 units right and 4 units up. 3 units right and 6 units up. 4 units right and 8 units up. Okay, so then you start from 0, 0, and you draw your line through all your dots and continue on forever. I'm not good at drawing straight lines. All right, x, y. If x is 1, 1 times 6 is 6. If x is 2, 2 times 6 is 12. So 1 unit right, 6 units up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2 units right, 12 units up. Oh, we're going off the graph. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Probably somewhere up there. Okay, so you start from 0, 0. And you try and draw a straight line that goes on forever. Last one. If x is 1, y is 3.5. If x is 2, 2 times 3.5 is 7. So if I go 1 unit right, I'm going to go 3.5 units up. If I'm going 2 units right, I'm going to go 7 units up. And then the last step we have before we're done is to draw our line. And those are your notes on representing rates.